happens when you balance your finances, career, and your well-being? There's no limit to what you can achieve. This is Finance, Fitness, and Finesse, a dimensional wealth podcast hosted by JaeVic, where building wealth with wellness isn't just a goal, it's a way to live intentionally. In a world flooded with information overload and misleading highlight reels, F3 is your podcast to help you realize you're not woke, you're broke, and how to change that in your favor. If you're looking to elevate your wealth, well-being, and discover the power of balance, tune in to learn why money matters, but wellness counts.
We often give off, or social media, or whatever it might give off this perception of a certain lifestyle that in fact is not real at all. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
Hey Finessers! Welcome to another episode of Finance, Fitness, and Finesse, where we build your wealth with wellness 5 reps at a time. I'm your host, JaeVic, and you're not woke, you're broke if you don't lock into this episode where industry experts share their insights on building wealth, managing stress, and living a balanced life. Before we get started, help your lifelong learner community grow by leaving a rate and review for the show on the homepage, or share this episode with someone you care about. And if you're looking for key resources and interactives to deepen your journey, head over to JaeVic.com. Today's guest is deeply committed to helping people feel supported, understood, and empowered as they make financial decisions that align with a life well lived. In this episode of F3, I sit down with Daly Andersson, a seasoned wealth advisor and educator. Daly brings over a decade of experience in personal wealth management with a heart-centered approach to guiding families, entrepreneurs, and women investors. She's not only a certified financial planner and chartered financial analyst, but also a lecturer in the University of Illinois Financial Planning Program and a frequent community speaker on personal leadership and financial education. We'll cover topics like the emotional side of wealth planning, empowering women through financial literacy, balancing professional goals with personal values, and what it really means to create a financial plan rooted in purpose. Whether it's financial strategy with heart, money as a tool for intentional living, or what female-led leadership looks like in the world of wealth management, this conversation is all about equipping you with the insight and inspiration to grow in both wellness and wealth. All right, let's get into it. Hey Finessers, welcome back to the show. I am so excited about this guest today. Daly, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me, Jay. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, of course. So Daly, for everyone, all the listeners to know, I met Daly when I was like, I'm trying to learn more about finance. I'm trying to meet people. And I went to a public speaking talk that Daly administered and was like, I need to connect with this person. So this is just another example of why don't be afraid to go up and walk up to someone, connect with them, because I have learned so much from Daly just in the few months I've been able to interact with her and build a relationship. So what is your first money memory, or a memory where your relationship with money changed?
Wow. I mean, we're starting off with the heavy hitters here, Jay. I'm not surprised, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. My first money memory, being a financial planner and being in this industry, I think I've examined my own money story quite a bit. I think it's healthy to kind of have an understanding of how I personally relate to money so that I can help my clients in a more authentic way. I think the story that comes to mind, so I grew up, my dad was a civil rights activist. And so from a very, very young age, he would talk to me about very mature things, just about equity and about how like the world's not necessarily, fair. And it's important to understand that and not take for granted like your privilege and things like that. And that it's really important to help other people because they don't always have, what you were born with. Right. And so that was kind of like something that I know I heard a lot when I was little. I don't know if I necessarily understood it until like I started getting a bit older. But one of my first early memories is I was in Chicago with my mom and my two sisters, and we were just kind of sightseeing, I think. And I was probably like maybe 6 or 7. And earlier that day, before we drove up to Chicago, I had cleaned out the car. It was like a minivan. And imagine any mom's minivan, like as clean as you want to keep it. Like there's going to be McDonald's French fries in it. There's going to be like, there's going to be melted crayons in the back. So I cleaned it out. And my reward for doing that was I got to collect all the change. So I collected all the change and I put it in a little cup and I kept it in the van. And so when we were in Chicago, we were walking around like probably Michigan Avenue or something. And there was a woman there, an older woman who had a sign, and she really just did not look like she was in good shape. And her sign said, I'm hungry. I need money. Can you help? And I didn't do anything immediately, but I just remember like the wheels in my head were spinning. And I was like, gosh, I have money. Maybe I could help her. So we went back to the car and I got my little bucket here of change and I went over actually by myself. My mom was kind of trailing me, but I went over by myself and gave it to her. And that was maybe one of my first money memories. And like, it was a really like felt empowering, but at the same time, I will say like maybe the part that's maybe not like a hallmark ending is that it was frightening for me because I was a shy child. And she was explaining to me things about, healthcare and medicine and, things that I was really a little overwhelmed by. But that was one of my first memories was that interaction.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, just from the jump when you were like, my dad was a civil rights activist, I was like, whoa. And then I'm just fascinated by the awareness that you had as a child, just being bigger than your own world. There's a certain magic in childhood where we are a bit oblivious to some of the harsher things that can happen in our world, but I definitely am picking up on the fact that your parents were very intentional about introducing it to you in a way that could foster a high emotional intellect and maturity so that you could face your fears of giving away something of value that is hilarious. You found like the minivan was like your own magical piggy bank that you could go and find money in.
It was pretty dirty. I earned those coins.
Yes, no doubt. But still, like you went through the trenches to get those coins. You understood the value of it. And then you recognized that there was somebody in need at such a young age. Man, I love to hear that. And I'm sure you've even worked to pass that on to your kids. I have no doubt.
I tried to, and I think like part of that is this feeling of conflictedness, and I think it's okay to have that, right? Like to know that may have certain privileges or certain opportunities that you are awarded just because of how you were born, where you were born, when you were born, to whom you were born, and the types of opportunities that you have are different than other people, and that's not a bad thing, but it's also something to not take for granted. And so I think there's like just awareness around that like can make you feel a little bit conflicted. I think it can also give you some feelings of guilt as well. I think it's good though to examine those feelings because it's not like you can tie it up in a neat bow and just say, okay, that's how it is. But, I think it's good to kind of maybe sit with it, I guess, because that's just part of life and kind of understanding your place in it and how you can make a difference.
Amen. I mean, you are completely spot on because as humans, our interactions with the world, our feelings, which are the product of emotions mixed with experiences, they are not one dimensional. There is a lot of conflict that happens there where you may be feeling good and you may be feeling bad at the same time. And the fact that you understood an element of abundance at such a young age and recognizing, hey, I have something that can help elevate someone's life, even if it's in a very small way, but whether it's through monetary things or simply just the act of recognition, we're in an age where we're so aware and in each other's business with media, but at the same time, we don't have the genuine recognition of what someone else might be going through. So that is, it's very refreshing to hear. I love that memory. Definitely one of my favorites shared on the show, I think.
Oh, thank you. It was fun, just thinking through that because it's one I don't think about very often, but it was a pretty pivotal experience, I think, for me when I was younger.
For sure. So what led you to a career in finance? Because I'm not going to lie, Daly, growing up, it's not like at career day, many of the young girls were like, I'm going to be a CFP, or I'm going to be a banker, or I'm going to work in the finance industry. It is traditionally, I would say, a male-dominated field. So, I mean, what led you all the way to becoming a certified financial planner?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, Jay. And I am no exception to that. This was not on my radar whatsoever. Growing up, I think I'm kind of more of like a ponderer at heart. Like I like to think about like hefty questions, and I really like literature, and I like philosophy, and I really love studying things like psychology and anthropology in school. I really loved music. I was a flutist, and I saw a lot of different potential careers for myself when I was growing up, but nothing that had anything to do with business, finance, or mathematics, or science. Like those just weren't things that were on my radar or things that I felt very connected to. But when I went to college, my freshman year, I was kind of in those throes of kind of exploring what I might want to do. And I was really enjoying like taking classes in like anthropology and psychology. And I could see an avenue there where I could have thrived, I think. But during my freshman year, my dad got very sick. And so that was really sad. And that he got sick. And the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, he actually passed away. He wasn't married, and I was his only child. And so like, even though I have really close with my sisters and my mom, and, they were really great support, like I was in a little bit of a unique situation, and that I needed to deal with certain things kind of in the more like financial, like adult world I was kind of thrust into. And I was fortunate that I had kind of like trustees and mentors that were looking out for helping me and kind of making sure I was on the right track and making good decisions and things like that. But it was an uncomfortable thing to be kind of thrust into a world that I didn't understand. And I didn't feel like the decisions that I made, that I really understood them, or I was educated enough to make them. And so in that process, like that was a really uncomfortable place for me to kind of be. One good thing that came out of it, though, is that I worked with a financial advisor who really helped me, not just in like figuring out like financial decisions and like the steps that need to be taken and things like that, but just she got to know me as a person, and she cared about me, and she pulled it all together for me. So like she made it approachable, like even though there were things I didn't understand and I didn't feel educated enough to like see my way through it, she gave me enough comfort and confidence that like things were okay for now, and I will learn and I will get through it over time. This is not like you have to know everything now. It's a progression, and it will improve. Like you will become more educated over time. I think, really that inspired me a lot, because I saw her and I thought, wow, what she's doing is so impactful to me. Like this is such a difference in my life, to be able to like give me the comfort to still be in this like exploratory phase. Because when you're 18, 19, you're still figuring out who you're going to be, what you're going to do. Like it's a very transitional period. And so like it gave me the comfort to still do those things and just know that I have kind of like this backup. And so I thought, wow, like I love the impact that she's having on my life. Like I feel like I could do that for someone else, and that would feel like such an amazing career. But I didn't know if I could do like the finance part and the business part, because that just had never crossed my mind. I was encouraged actually by her to take a class in finance, and I did. And actually, like it clicked for me. I really, shockingly, I loved it. And I talked to the professor after one of like the first exams, it was one of those exams that kind of weed people out, right? Like, it's kind of like all right, we're serious now. Like, this is what this class is going to be. It's going to be hard. And I did really well on it. And I talked to the professor afterwards, and I was like, I was surprised. I did pretty well in this. And he was like, yeah, what are you doing being like this major? You need to switch to finance. And so that was literally the only push that it took to make me switch to finance that day and be like, okay, you think I can do it? I see a career path here that I think I would really love. I'm going to go for it. And so that's how I kind of ended up going for finance, and then, finding this amazing career that's just been a wonderful, wonderful part of my life.
Love to hear it. Thank you so much for sharing that journey with us. I mean, what a journey, because it's not like you were like, oh, I want to earn a lot of money, so I'm going to go into finance. It was built off of experiences of recognizing where you were receiving help and just taking that leap to try because you trusted the encouragement that you were receiving. And I do want to acknowledge, Daly, that your energy, the way that you interact with people, the way you articulate yourself and connect, it just pours out pieces of your dad that I know I didn't even know, but I can definitely tell that you do not define people by their assigned or perceived circumstances.
Mhm.
And you didn't apply that to yourself, which is why I know that you're very impactful in your work. So I'm so thankful that you chose to just really listen to yourself as you went through this journey. I mean, as you know, a lot of my listeners are young adults in the middle of life transitions trying to find
Yeah.
themselves. And I mean, a lot of us are like, I don't have any passions. I don't know what I'm doing. But you never know. I mean, what have you experienced? What are people like nudging you, or are they suggesting that you have maybe some different skills and talents that you can choose to explore? It's not assigning a certain job or lifestyle to yourself, but
Right.
really, really reflecting and putting the pieces together of what can I try that might spark some new interest. And I mean, Daly, you were doing that amidst being a freshman in college and grief. I mean, nobody talks about that. Like, and then being thrust into an adult position amidst grief, amidst finding yourself, and then all within, money. I mean, I am impressed that you didn't fully recede into yourself during that time. I mean, maybe there were elements of that.
It's like I have the privilege here of sitting here and have hindsight, like, but it wasn't pretty, there was grief. Like, it was a really, really challenging time for me. And like, I went through a lot of hardship to come through it. And like, now I see all the pieces and I see, wow, like that made me so strong. It made me more understanding of different perspectives, more empathetic, I think. But, I think just like anyone who might be listening and experiencing times of transition or periods of uncertainty about like their path or what they're doing, like it doesn't always feel good. Like, even if you might be on the right path, or you might be like, we're making progress, we're doing what we need to do, it doesn't always feel like you are. I have that privilege of hindsight and knowing like, yeah, this all made sense. All these hardships made sense and they made me stronger, but when you're in them, they don't feel good. And so, I think that that's another part of the perspective of like, I wish I could go back, right, to myself as a 18, 19, 20-year old and say like, actually, this is going to work out. Like, you just have to keep going. It's okay to be uncertain. It's okay to feel super uncomfortable with this, but it will work out. But you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
That is so refreshing. I'm like laughing over here because I need that, because I'm still in my very much my build period. And I'm like, Jay, what one of my mantras I say to myself is I'm closer than I think. Whenever
Hmm.
I'm just very overwhelmed, or sometimes we need just the good adult cry over the simplest things or very complex things. And also, everyone listening, please take into account that you never know what somebody is going through. Like, just work to have patience and step outside of your immediate feelings that you may have based on your perception of someone. Because, Daly, I doubt you were going around saying, my dad passed away and now I have to handle all this money stuff. And not everyone just goes out and like says those things when there are traumatic
Yeah.
moments. So I just wanted to say that piece for the listeners too. Sometimes we need to step outside of our experiences and just take note that there could be something bigger going on. So
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative again of your journey of working your way here. And I mean, Daly, you're definitely part of the movement of recognizing the psychological, behavioral, emotional connections to money. How has that been working that into your practice with your clients? Because I mean, I don't work directly in the finance industry. Is that a bit taboo to address some of those more underlying connections when you're working with your clients, or even in the workplace, like bringing those techniques into, your place of work?
That's a really excellent question. And I think it can be taboo. I think it really depends the environment in which you're working. So, I have been really fortunate of finding people and finding a wonderful organization where like I'm very well aligned. Like we, have the same approach. We have the same kind of guiding values around like integrating life with finances, because in reality, like money is this amazing resource, right? But we have all of these emotions tied to it. And every one of us, it can be different, right? It can give us feelings of hope and optimism. For other people, it might bring shame or guilt. And that in turn affects how we behave with it. And so I think, we don't ever want to like stereotype or generalize. Like, really, what I love about how we practice is that it's deep work. It's getting to know another human on a one-on-one or a two-on-one if it's a couple or a family type of scenario. And it's like getting to know like what's driving them, what's important to them. And it's not overtly like psychological or like, you know what I mean? It's more of like just these deep conversations, and then ensuring that like helping people explore what their values are and explore how that might relate to how they want to be intentional around their money goals and values and how they spend their time and their money. And I think that can be a really, like, number one, it helps me do the best job that I can do, because if I understand somebody's background and really what guides them, and kind of maybe even sometimes like their money history, right? Like if your money story is, that you've overcome poverty and that you had to come through a lot of adversity in your life, you may have a different behavioral cycle when it comes to money that might be tied to kind of what you grew up with. And so understanding those elements can help people kind of hold up a mirror in a sense, and kind of show people like, this is what you say you really want to achieve. Like, this is the life that you want to live. And like helping people in a coaching sense of like, what do you think the ways are that we can help you get there, through using things like your finances and helping make a lot of decisions that you make throughout your life have some financial implication, whether that's a career change, a job change, or having a child, or getting married, or getting divorced, or like all of these life changes, retiring, like they all have monetary implications. And so helping people really view those decisions in light of like what's truly important to them, to help enable them achieving that life that they want to live.
I hear you, and that makes a lot of sense. I love the baseline of seek to understand so that you can help them bring out their values and maybe some past financial challenges that may have left some scars. But it comes down to just seeking to understand. And I'm sure that really helps with you building the trust in the relationship. Because I mean, you're helping people make decisions with their money, make decisions with their money moves. I mean, on my end as a financial therapist, I am doing more of the psych emotional work. Where are you afraid on these decisions? How do they lead to XYZ? But I'm not necessarily, I don't have to build the trust of actually doing the action of here's where to put your money, which is a huge step for people. Is, I mean, whether it's with money or anything else, is taking the action. So this is just yet another example of what I work to bring into my show for listeners. Is you don't just have to be a clinical therapist like in my role to seek to understand people. You can be in the finance industry, or you could be someone who wasn't even going into finance that learned how to seek to understand the circumstances and values of others. So that is an excellent baseline. Definitely taking note of that.
I love that motto of seek to understand. And I would say I'll add another thing that and this I think does actually come from therapy practice, but it's another thing that kind of guides the way that I think about working with people, is holding them always with unconditional positive regard, not in a place of judgment. Like, we are there to kind of help people explore and understand to them what is their best life, what's the life they want to live, and helping them make decisions, like educated decisions on how to make that achievable for them. And I can't sit across the table from somebody and know what somebody's best life is going to be. That's completely subjective, right? So shining a light on like helping people explore that, and not being, sitting in judgment ever of another human, because, what they want is they want, and everybody wants a good life. Everybody wants, to do the right thing, whatever that might be in their world. And so that's another thing that I try to always hold myself up to, that standard of putting myself in the place of like, I'm always in this place of unconditional positive regard with my clients. And I think I really like that concept. And I know that comes from therapy and from a thing called, I think it's called motivational interviewing, I think is what years ago. But I was like, wow, that is exactly, that's it. I want to take that and I want to use that.
Yes, I'm so happy you held on to some things you learned in your psych classes and different readings.
Yes.
Daly's definitely part of the Lifelong Learner Club if you guys have not picked up on that yet. I'm interested because as you were talking about helping people define, make a game plan towards their ideal lifestyle, I studied eating disorders and financial strain, and then that led me into developing a concept called disordered consumption, as we live in a society that is pushing consumerism pretty hard. I mean, consumerism does stimulate the economy, but it doesn't always stimulate our bank accounts in a positive way.
Or even our minds, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm wondering, have you had clients that over the course of your career, even maybe just people you've interacted with that are trying to achieve a certain lifestyle that is valued on the media that may not necessarily be within reach or even aligned with their values?
Oh, that's a good question. I think to some extent we probably are all influenced in ways. I mean, that's the whole like keeping up with the Joneses. And part of that can be healthy, right? Peer pressure, for example, I have a preschooler and her learning to potty train was wholly in part to peer pressure. All of her little friends were potty training and like they were getting it done. And you know what? That was very helpful. So I think part of it's a little bit of human nature of like, we want to make sure we're not falling behind the pack. But I think where it becomes very like problematic and harmful is that we often give off, or social media or whatever it might be, it might give off this perception of a certain lifestyle that in fact is not real at all. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Like this person might drive a Land Rover, but like you don't know, you don't know their finances behind that. You really just don't know. And so that's where I think it can be very problematic, is if there's a lifestyle that's being kind of portrayed, and being portrayed as like the ideal, or that it's almost the standard. And in reality, it's not achievable for most people. And so, I think that's just a common thing that's going on. It's probably age old, right? But now with social media, it's probably even more prevalent of just putting that in front of our face of like this image of what it means to be successful. So, I mean, I think we probably all struggle with it to some degree. One way that I try to, really help others with that, and probably help myself, to be honest, I do the same exercises with like my husband, and I do the same types of like exercises that I do with clients, or that we, discussions that we have with clients, which is basically like, can you identify your values? Like what's truly important to you? And so there's certain values exercises that you can do. And, like going through like a big list of values might be 50 words. And then you tailor it down to the top 15. And then you have to make another hard choice and you tailor it down to the next 10. And then maybe you can tailor it down to your top 5 values. And then you look at those and you say, okay, like how am I living in those values and why are they important to me? And a lot of times they may be things like family or freedom or possibilities or adventure or fun or education. Like they're going to be different for everyone, but those are some common ones that might come up. And most of the time I'll say what doesn't come up is like, trying to be like so-and-so. Right? Like you have your own individual values. And so you also realize in that process that you have to whittle it down. There might be like a lot of different things that you want, but you have to make decisions. And that's the same way it is with money, right? It does not matter how much money you have. You could be Oprah Winfrey or Beyonce or Bill Gates, and you still have to make decisions about how you spend your time and how you spend your money. And so that's the same as it is here. And so if you can put it in context of what's truly valuable to me, that's actually where you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck. That's where you know that like, actually these dollars that I just spent towards giving my family this amazing experience of traveling somewhere, for example, like that actually means a lot more to me than being able to drive a Land Rover, around town. Like this was actually more meaningful. So I think like kind of doing some self exploration and exercises like that can really help put things into perspective, because as much as like it would be great to have all the things all the time, like the reality is we all have to make choices. We also all have to balance the need for what we need and want today versus what we need and want in the future.
Yeah.
And if we are all about today, then that means that our future selves may be lacking. And so there's a lot of elements to like healthy financial planning that you have to carefully balance. So those are kind of some of the things that I try to work in, like the name of your business, like multi dimensions. It's like very dimensional, like to ensure that like we're not missing anything, that you're still living in your values, still really able to live the things that are important to you, but not depriving yourself today or, depriving your future self.
Ooh, you guys need to rewind about 120 seconds because Daly is dropping bombs. That is so good. That is so good. Number one, thank goodness you practice what you preach. You exercise those check-ins. You reinforce your core, your baseline with yourself and with your family. Literally, the exercises that you were talking about reminded me of the first time that, well, you were presenting, but I'll say when I interacted with you, you had the people in the audience do that exercise of defining their values. And in the information age, the overwhelm, hustle culture that we constantly live in, and I mean, it's the way things are, but the way that we can stay grounded is making sure that we are identifying, developing, and acknowledging our baseline values so that we have a stronger foundation to make decisions within the different dimensions of the human experience. So I love that exercise. I still have, I think you had a couple of pieces of paper with it because I use it for I stole it. I was like, I'm gonna use this for my
Oh,
client.
good. I didn't create it, so I just used it and I was like, this is great. So I'm going to pass it on.
Yeah, well, and that's what you got to do. And I mean,
Yes.
again, like exercise those principles first within yourself and then with others. I absolutely love that methodology. I'm wondering, as a woman in leadership in a male-dominated field, how have you navigated different transitions in the workplace, especially when you're stepping into roles where maybe you had to prove yourself repeatedly?
Oh, that's a meaty question.
Hit what you want with it.
Yeah. So I will say that number one, I feel like I've had a very fortunate career experience. I started in an organization where I had a lot of opportunities. Like it was a really, really great place to begin my career and to learn. And I was there for, I think, about 10 years. And in that time period, I got to experience a lot of growth and opportunities. And I had a lot of people that believed in me. And I had some amazing colleagues and mentors there that, I mean, you're just learning things every day. And what's so cool is that you can learn, like, you see people that are practicing what you want to practice. Maybe it's a little bit different than how you might end up doing it, but you can take bits and pieces from what other professionals and other people do, and you can try them on and try it for size and say, hey, this is what so and so does, and this works for me, or I might modify this a little bit. And so like that was a really amazing experience for me because it was a really like convivial environment. It was very like, felt like a family. We were all very close, and it was a great culture. I feel like I was very lucky in finding an organization like where I started my career that I feel like it was a very healthy, positive experience. And I know that's, you bring up like women in finance, and you bring up being a mom in this world. And like, I know that's not the case for everyone, and certainly not in this field. So I know that I'm very lucky and fortunate that I feel like I was in a, good spot for those years where I was still kind of learning and experiencing and kind of exploring how I wanted to be in my career. In terms of like trying to prove myself, maybe it's because I didn't feel like I ever saw myself in this field before I kind of had that like pivotal moment where I changed. So I felt like from the get-go, I felt a little bit like I had catching up to do. I had to prove that I needed to be there. I knew on the kind of more emotional and like interrelational type of aspect, I felt like I could have conversations with people. I felt like I could help them explore things, help them make decisions. But the part, of course, like without having finished coursework and things like in finance, I was like, I better make sure I'm like really solid on that. And so that was something I leaned in really hard. Like in undergrad, when I changed my major to finance, like I went all in. So like I wasn't just like taking like finance and like trying to be the middle of the pack. Like I was disappointed if I wasn't the top score in every exam. Like I was like,
Period.
okay, like I was really ambitious about it, and so that served me well. I guess I was a little competitive, but that, a little bit of like imposter syndrome, I suppose, served me kind of well because it proved to myself that I was in the right spot and that I had the technical capacity to be able to like deliver really excellent advice, not just heartfelt, like good advice, but also like on the financial side, like very, very like excellent solutions that were, optimal from every sense of like the craft of financial planning. And so that's something, it's like, it's kind of this dual arm to be really impactful, like to be able to be on the emotional side, but also to deliver this, really excellent technical advice, like to be able to marry those two things together. That's been my goal. And so throughout my career, I have raised my hand and volunteered for things that, early on scared me, right? Like, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to figure it out. So I would volunteer for things that I was like, I don't know how to do this yet, but I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to trust that I can figure it out as I go. And so that's what I did. I did the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst designation route early on in my career, which was a really, really difficult series of exams. It's 3 exams and they give you, you can take 1 exam basically every year. So it's, if you don't pass level 1 or you don't pass level 2, you have to wait an entire year before you can take that exam again. So it's like a high pressure, in a sense, exam. So I went through that program and, I got the designation kind of early in my career. And that was something that made me feel like, again, gained more confidence. So I continued to do things that would, I guess, maybe improve my own technical experience and expertise. And so I felt like that would, that has really helped me in terms of building both arms of what I think is the most impactful type of professional.
I admire and respect your commitment to just subjecting yourself to the discomfort in the learning experience. And nobody wants to stay in discomfort forever, but it sounds like you just work to have faith that knowing that, hey, I'm going to stay on the track. I'm going to continue to really apply myself and to stay committed to the underlying purpose of you wanting to help people in the way that you were helped, not just chasing money for a certain type of career or a certain type of path. That right there is a core part of the resilience that you've been able to maintain from at least what I can tell. And I have a few questions that came up as you were sharing that part of your journey. Not everyone is necessarily raised or is able to embrace the characteristic of assertiveness as they navigate different life transitions, especially stepping out of the student bubble into your first job. And one thing that I struggle with sometimes daily that I'm seeking your insight on is I remind myself before I walk into a room of professionals, people that may be older than me, certainly more financially stable, more established in their careers. Like I'm just out of school, out of my master's program. And sometimes I have to walk it before I go into the room. I have to say to myself, Jay, you are an equal. I am an equal. I can communicate with these people. And growing up, I was very much taught to respect my elders. We have a lot to learn from our elders, which of course, like I will always hold on to that. But sometimes it causes imposter syndrome for me. And I know some other people, or I'm sure you may have experienced this daily, of being the new person and having a lot to learn, but also knowing that you have a level of intellect and innovation to offer. So I guess what I'm asking is, how do we find the balance of defeating the imposter syndrome that we may be less than in a room of people who are more established than us?
Oh man, that is such a great question. And I'll also say that, I think A lot of people have that. A lot of people have to talk themselves up before they go on stage and have the butterflies and have the nerves. And actually, it reminds me, Jay, of when you and I first met. I was doing a presentation, and number one, I was just glad that people showed up. Quite honestly, I was like, I put a lot of work into this. I really hope people are going to show up. And number two, that there was response in the audience, so it's like, even to this day, like I have confidence now. I've gotten to that place where I am very confident, what I can do and like my professional abilities and things like that. But it's taken a long time to get there. And even so, I still have to talk myself up. And so actually, I was so grateful to you after that presentation that you came up and you gave me feedback and you told me that you liked it and that it was, like valuable to you. And it's like those little things you don't take for granted. And so I think maybe just gaining the perspective that like you said earlier on, we're all dealing with our own things and our own messy head trash. And we may be in different phases of sorting it out. And it may be like a life cycle phase, or it may be just like on a weekly thing. Like today, I feel pretty good. Like I did really good today at work and like I feel confident. It just may be like on a day-to-day thing. So I think just having the perspective that like, even though it looks like people have it all figured out, they often don't. A lot of people, really deal with that imposter syndrome or a lack of confidence. And even if you gain confidence in one area, there may be other areas of your life that, you might feel less confident. So bringing yourself above it and out of it and like looking down and being like, no, I'm awesome. Like who I am, the experiences that I've lived, the things that I've learned, the values that I have, the dreams that I have, those all make me a unique person with so much value and so much to give to others. There's nothing to diminish that. We're all in different phases of figuring out life and figuring out families and figuring out our careers. And like, I just think just own it. I think we're all there and we all kind of deal with this head trash. And, the more you kind of normalize that and realize like that we're all there together, like it gets a little bit easier, I think.
I appreciate that insight so much. Hashtag clear out the head trash and recognize that everybody has head trash. I'm just going to keep saying it because it's hilarious. Yeah, like, I mean, we're ever evolving and it hits because I've heard that in different ways before from, people I've interacted with, people I look up to that, hey, there's never a point where we don't need that self-talk or self-validation before going into a conversation or situation that may be a little bit outside of our comfort zone, or even if you've been there 100 times, maybe you just don't have that capacity that day to apply yourself as well as you usually know. So maybe you need more of that self-talk. So that is super reassuring, and I appreciate you offering that insight.
I'll also add that like looking to you, like there's a lot of things that, just you and I having connected over the last few months that I look up to you for. And I'm like, wow, I don't know how you figured all this out already. So,
Thank
just
you.
know that like, we all have different strengths that we bring to the table. And I mean, we're just all unique.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Daly, I want to, from our coffee chats that we've had, I've never carried a tiny human before. Not necessarily like looking forward to the intensity of that, much less being in leadership positions and working. And I mean, I'm building myself up to that, with my business in dimensional wealth. And so I would love for you to share a little bit about your experience as a mom, like being in a leadership position, being pregnant in a leadership position, trying to regulate yourself, like while your body's trying to regulate yourself and like you're in high stress environments. I mean, what unique challenges have you faced as a mother and leader in a high stress field? And what lessons could you share with women who are pursuing similar paths?
That's an awesome question. And I think everybody experiences it differently, both in terms of like what their environment and experience is in the workforce or at home, resources and support they have, but also just physiologically how you experience being pregnant with a tiny human. For me, I will say my pregnancies, I'm very thankful. They were very smooth. So I will say that like, actually when the baby was like, when I was carrying the baby, that was the easiest part. Cause I didn't have to worry about where my baby was or pumping breast milk or picking up from daycare. Like I could just move on with my day, right? My baby was just with me all the time. But that being said, like, I think there's also this almost an outward, like when you're in leadership, like you don't always think about the fact that you're also kind of setting an example and setting a role for other people. And there's some responsibility in that. I don't know that I always handled that right when I look back at my career, because I think, the email etiquette, for example, like sending emails at 5 a.m, that's not a good thing to do. But I definitely, I have definitely done that. Not intending to have people respond to me, but just because I had insomnia, right, when I was pregnant, and I was like, I'll just get some work done, and didn't know about Daly Send at the time. So I think sometimes there's unintentional things that you're kind of modeling for others. And I look back and I see now that that may have been perceived in a different way than I had ever intended, right? That may have been perceived that I'm trying to be Wonder Woman, or that trying to kind of push through this. And so, you kind of have hindsight, and you can kind of see through things in your experience and think, well, maybe that wasn't, the best way to do that. But, I think navigating that in the workforce is tough, because you don't know how you're going to experience the transition. I feel like, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like I was having our first child, it was a big transition. And you can kind of think through what to expect, but in reality, then you have this little tiny human, and you feel changed as a person, and, your priorities shift, your available time shifts. Things that you might have spent more time doing, your time for yourself changes. And so it's a bit of a messy middle, I think, when you're kind of in the middle of figuring out what motherhood or parenthood and a professional career looks like. I think it's really important, if you want a family and you want to have that balance, is thinking through do I have good support? And that not just at home, and not just, but also in the workforce. Is this something where I have the resources that I need to be able to be the type of parent that I want to be? And what that means to you, and know that you might think it means one thing before you have the baby. And then when you have a baby, it might mean something different. So affording yourself a little bit of that uncertainty and that flexibility, knowing that okay, my perception may change, once I have this child. It's one of those things that it's hard to kind of know exactly how you're going to feel until you're in it. But for me specifically, I was lucky that I had a lot of flexibility in my career with my children. And so I felt like I could be both the parent I wanted to be, and also continue to kind of pursue my career. I would say I probably leaned out a little bit more during during those early years. Not leaned out, but I didn't maybe lean in quite as much as I had been, just because, it's hard to balance all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that, because I have friends, siblings, that are moving into positions of motherhood, and there's certain statistics going around right now about how there's a major transfer of wealth happening towards women, while also women are working a lot more in the workforce. And so I hear you on the openness and adaptability that you probably really had to adopt during not only your first pregnancy, but as you continue to raise children. So I very much value that, as maybe me or other people listening move into that mode of life. And I am wondering your thoughts as well, Daly, because there is a certain level of resistance going on right now with people getting married, especially having kids, because I've heard having a kid is super expensive. So
Yeah.
how the heck am I supposed to have a child if it's going to place me into debt, and then you're just playing catch up that whole time?
Well, that's another really difficult question. And, I don't know that I have the solution exactly, but as a planner, you can come about it from a couple of viewpoints. One is, if family is important to you and it's a high priority, you got to find a way to be able to do it, right? If it's something that's a core value to you, we've got to figure it out, right? And so there is a way to do it, right? So it becomes a little bit of a kind of a pragmatic problem. What resources do we need in order to be able to kind of raise this little tiny human? And what resources and support do we have? So, yeah, it is tough, honestly, and I don't have a universal solution for it, but I do recognize that a lot of people, make choices that impact the size of their family really just due to financial constraints. And so It's going to be unique. It's going to differ depending on where you're located, what type of job circumstances you have, the flexibility, the stability financially, but also like the cost of housing. Like you look at the different metropolitan cities and like it can be very, very expensive. And then you look at the cost of daycare. And so just like anything else with financial planning, like you do have to make decisions, right? And decisions, like there are trade-offs. Unfortunately, that might mean that, if you do one thing, then it might mean you have less of something else, or you may need to make a location change or a job change, or, figure out what aspects of your situation are variable that you could change in order to get the support and the financial resources that you need in order to achieve the family or the life that you want. Yeah, I don't have a universal solution to it because I think the problem is really complex and it's nuanced and it's individualized as well on the circumstance. But I do know that, like, as a planner, if it's something that's really important to you, if it's a core value, if it's something that you want, you got to figure out, what you need to do in order to achieve it, I think.
I appreciate you being blunt that there isn't just a straight answer. And I mean, if you did say this is how you do it, it'd honestly be more concerning because you and I both know life and these big decisions are not one dimensional, but the biggest thing that you consistently relay back to, which is why we know it's a big part of your practice, is seeking to understand your values. So then you can develop the strategies. And you also are not alone in developing those strategies. There are financial planners, there are financial therapists, maybe even just someone in your community that could help. Yeah, values work to produce the strategies is a wonderful method. As we close out the episode, Daly, what message do you want to leave young professionals, our listeners? What do you want to leave them with to encourage them during times of transition?
Oh, I love this. In times of transition in particular, they can be so messy. They can feel like you don't know the right step going forward. And there's a few things that I would really advise, I would really recommend because I think they're helpful. Number one is give yourself grace and know that even if this next decision doesn't feel like you don't feel super confident, you don't feel like you know exactly what the right thing to do is, you just put one foot in front of the other. You make the next best decision that you can, even if it's not always optimal, right? You just keep making progress and know that it's not going to stay that way forever. You're working towards something. You won't be there immediately, and know that it's really messy in the middle. The second thing that I would say is really try to kind of take a bird's eye view of yourself and the situation at hand and look at it as if you're like an eagle soaring above and you're seeing the whole perspective. And think about what is framing this situation for you. Like, how would you describe it? What are your resources around it? Like, what are the different strengths that you can bring to this situation that maybe you haven't considered? They can be things like your own personal identity. Like, what are some of my character strengths that I know I can really pull from when I need to? Like, maybe it's resilience. Maybe it's like, I am a really great listener and a great friend. I can pull these wonderful relationships that I have. Maybe it's that I'm really, pragmatic and I can work myself through this solution. Then I would also look at the resources that you have and relationships that you have. Who's there to help support you? And it may be friends, it may be family, it may be coworkers. It may also be a therapist or a financial planner or even even a housekeeper or somebody who is helping you keep your sanity in the midst of this transition. And then the other thing that I would say is, what are different things that you can do for yourself now that either can help modify how you think about this transition? Is there a way you can reframe it into thinking about it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's something I need to get through and it's not permanent? And are there strategies that you can use that will help you? And whether that's some self-care, like meditation, going for a walk, having coffee with a friend, do not forget to do those things that really make you feel like a human, make you feel at a core who you are.
Hey finessers, ever feel like getting rich and actually balancing your life are two totally different games? Like you can either chase the bag or keep your peace, but not both? At Dimensional Wealth, I help you understand your money habits and build systems that actually support your unique vision of wealth. Because you're not a one-dimensional person, your wealth shouldn't be either. True abundance is built on layers, and the 5 Reps to Wealth framework captures those dimensions that make up your unique system of wealth: financial, intellectual, vocational, emotional, relational, environmental, physical, and spiritual. Through financial therapy and organizational programming, we invest in your mind, money, and momentum all in one place. It's time to design your blueprint for holistic abundance. Stop saying you'll do it tomorrow and visit JaeVic.com. Links in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Finance, Fitness, and Finesse. If you enjoyed this episode, take action and share this episode and tell your friends you're not woke, you're broke. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to build your wealth with wellness, 5 reps at a time. I'm JaeVic, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until next time, don't forget to visit JaeVic.com. Be sure to keep finessing, and if you don't know, now you know. Disclaimer, this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial or mental health advice. Always seek professional guidance tailored to your personal needs.